Hey crazy friends.
Hey guys.
It's Jay and Francis with Find Your Crazy. We're a family of 9 who live full-time in our RV with 6 of our kids, so we go around the country to see every national park. And today we're bringing you another family tour guide for one of those parks, where we're going to share all of our favorite tips, tricks, and must-sees so that you can maximize your time at the park. And we're super excited because Acadia National Park is ranked up there as one of our top of all the parks we've seen.
Sure.
We cannot wait to share it with you. So we are not kidding around when we tell you that Acadia is one of our top national parks. I mean, it feels like we kind of keep saying this, that we get to a park and it's more amazing than what we were thinking, and that happens a lot. But Acadia, for everybody in our family, was hands down just jaw-dropping the entire time, and there's so much to do there. In fact, there's so much to do there that we're going to have to break it into 2 videos. So Acadia is kind of a unique park in that it's not actually very big. It's actually like the 5th smallest national park, but it is one of the top 10 most visited, so it stays pretty busy. But one of the things that's unique about it is many of the national parks, you know, you can draw a line all the way around them, right? It's one plot of land. But Acadia is actually broken up into several places, all these kind of pieces hodgepodge together, which makes it unique because that means there's towns kind of interspersed all around the park. And so with that, we're going to focus in this video on really the central part of the park, the biggest single part of the park. And then in the next video, we'll talk about all those other things that there are to do around that central park. So in the central part of the park is the main thing to do, and this is our first must-see of the video, is to drive Park Loop Road.
Right.
So this is a mostly one-way. There's a little portion of it that's two-way, but mostly one-way road that goes around the main mountains right outside of Bar Harbor. And so it is really, if you can only do one thing at Acadia, this is the thing you got to do. If you've only got one day to spend there, this is the thing that you need to do, is to drive around this loop. And so it doesn't take a super long time unless you stop a lot, which you're going to want to stop a lot. And so when we did the loop, it was pretty much an all-day experience. And so make sure you plan at least a full day just to do this loop that we're going to talk to you about.
And I would say, even before you go on the loop, make sure that you visit the visitor center. Something that's different and unique about Acadia is that there is a bus system within the park. And so if you don't want to take your car, or if you're going through a really busy time, so the summer and the fall are super busy. We were there on a shoulder month. We were there in June, which you think is the summer, but it's actually right before the really busy time. And so there is a bus system there that can help you so that if it's really busy, you don't have to worry about parking and things like that. So do make sure as you start this loop area that you go by the visitor center, you get your Junior Ranger book, and you get on the trail, because that's where your sign is and all of that. So make sure you don't forget to stop by there and get all your important information as you start out your trek.
Yeah, that's definitely our first family pro tip, is to start your adventure at Hull Visitor Center.
100%.
You need to go in and talk to the rangers. It's unique in a couple things. Number one, because it's so broken up, this is where you go to pay your entrance fee, and you get a tag that you got to put up on your car so you can drive anywhere around in there. Secondly, there's a lot of things going on in the park, and there are a lot of trails that are open and closed certain parts of the year. And so you really need to check in with them to find out about that. And then, of course, like Francis said, you can get an opportunity to get on the Island Explorer bus if you're there during the peak time, June to August, which is when the buses run. And they run all through this loop that we're talking about. There are different stops that they stop at the main stops, but also one of the unique things is they will stop anywhere to pick up passengers, so you can always flag them down if you see one, and they'll let you jump on and go to the next place. And so we much more enjoyed having our car and being able to kind of pace ourselves, But we weren't there during the peak time, and
you
like I
really
said,
won't have much parking.
One of the 5th smallest, but one of the top 10 visited. So that means people per square foot is a lot going on. Yeah,
it's a lot. So
for sure. So once you get on the loop, you'll go a little ways away from the visitor center before you turn on to your left to get onto the one-way part to start heading around the loop. And the loop goes clockwise around the mountain range that's right there. And so there are lots of places to see. There's lots of look-offs, lookouts, scenic overlooks. You stop at a bunch of those, but we're going to kind of hit our top things to see around that. And our next must-see is the first one that you're going to come around to, and it's Sand Beach.
Oh, it's fun.
It is really unique. So much of Acadia's coastline is a very much rocky coastline, which makes it very, very beautiful. But there's one stretch, I mean, it's probably only 200 yards of just sandy beach. And so there are tons and tons of people there. So you got kind of the volcanic black rock coming down on both sides.
There's plenty of rocks going on
the sides, but then basically sand all across the middle. There are lifeguards there. But because it's a beach, it was pretty crowded consistently throughout the day. And so that's our next family pro tip, is talking about parking in the park.
Yes.
So the one-way loop around the park is actually 2 lanes. And so you'll notice once you start driving it, especially around these major hubs and places we're going to talk to you about, a lot of people would just pull over into that right lane, kind of hanging off a little bit, and then walk down to wherever they're at. The parking lots at these places are super small. But our pro tip for you is, especially if you've got kind of a big family or maybe some people with mobility issues, is just commit to circling the parking lot a little bit.
You'll get a spot.
There's a lot of turnover in these places as well. And while a couple of the parking lots are just kind of one way through, if you know what I mean, this one specifically at Sand Beach, you can just loop around. And we only drove around for about 4 minutes before we spotted somebody coming out, pulled in behind them, and got a spot.
Just be patient. If that's important to you, then be patient, because it is worth getting out. Also, there you will be able to change clothes. There are bath houses there. If they're open during the season that you're in, especially in the summer, they'll be open. There are places to eat and picnic areas. There's a lot of people sitting around. There's shade trees, so you don't have to just spend it on the beach. There is a place right after the parking lot area where you can wash off yourself after that if you're continuing your journey. If your kids want to get in the water and want to swim for part of that day, because it is a loop and it's a one-way loop, you don't just get to turn around and go right back out of the thing. You have to commit to the entire loop. So you're going to be sandy and wet for a while. It's nice to be able to wash off those feet, be able to grab a quick snack, and just enjoy the beach. But I would tell you a warning, maybe a pro tip or a warning. The water is cold, so be very, very careful. You'll see signs everywhere at the visitor center, right outside the beach. Be really careful, especially with your children. It's going to be warm out there in the summer. It's going to be beautiful weather. Sometimes you're even getting a little hot because it can be up in the 80s, but that water is in the 50s. It only takes a toddler about 10 minutes to get hypothermia if they are submerged in that water.
So once you get finished there at Sand Beach, you can continue on around the loop, and you're really going to come to some pretty amazing coastline where, again, it's just basically mountain, 2-lane road, and then the rocky cliffs falling off into the water. I mean, it is really that close. And so realize, because of that parking along the side of the road, if you see something beautiful, just pull over. There's a walking trail down most of it. But the next major thing that you're definitely not going to want to miss is Thunder Hole.
Yay!
Thunder Hole is
awesome.
Such a unique landmark right there on the coast. And so what it is basically along this rocky area, there's a cave back up into the rocks right at the water line. And so when the tide is coming in and out, it'll push down into that cave and then basically explode back out.
So cool.
And it'll spray out, 40 or 50 yards and make just thunderous sounds. And so it is definitely a not miss. But our next family pro tip is, when you're at that whole visitor center, ask them to show you the tide schedule so that you can take a picture of it.
Absolutely.
Because there are certain times of the day when you would go down there, and at Thunder Hole you would see nothing. Because the tide, when it's at high tide, the cave is completely underwater and it just looks like another rock.
There you go.
When it's at low tide, you can see completely back up in the cave, but there's really no thunder because the water's not really moving in and out. They say the peak time is between low and high tide, and the best time is about 2 hours before high tide. So that's when the water is really rushing in, is going to give you the most explosion.
It's awesome.
And be prepared to wait in line a little bit. There is a boardwalk that goes literally right beside it so that you can get out past it and look back into it. It's worth waiting your time to get up there to it to see that front row seat of Thunder Hall.
Because realize on this loop, because it is the one way, as we keep saying, you're committing to a long time. So if you don't see the things that you want to see, you're committing to a pretty good portion of another day just to get to those. And we did that a couple of times. But just remember that it's worth maybe waiting a few minutes now if you don't have several hours another time. She got a lot of babies like me. Oh, one fell off? Oh, look. Oh, those are so cute. Oh my goodness, they're adorable. They're all furry. Now you can get up and go see them, babe. Oh, hello. There's Christopher over there to the right. There he goes. Actually, that's Joseph. There he goes. Oh, here comes one, Christopher. Whoa, look at it, Christopher.
So once you finish up at Thunder Hole, you're going to get back on and keep going around that one-way road. Now, there are several other places that you definitely want to stop, get out, look at. I wish we had time to talk about all of them, but we don't. But you'll want to stop at all of them for sure. Yes. Once you hit the southern tip kind of the loop, there's actually a place you can get off the road there. Or if you can only have time to do half, you can come back and get back on there before you kind of start going up the other side. But once you pass that and keep going around, our next must-see is the next big thing around there, and that is Jordan Pond. Beautiful, picturesque little lake right in the middle of Mount Desert Island. Mount Desert Island is the island that most of Acadia is on. Beautiful little pond that's right there. But the highlight of the pond is not just the views, but the food. Our next pro family tip is if you're there, you have to stop at Jordan Pond House and get you some tea and popovers. Okay, so we had some friends come and visit us. That was so special. That was one of the first times we had anyone come and visit us on the road. And Maine and Bar Harbor and Acadia should be on everyone's bucket list, and it was on our two friends' bucket list. And so we took a ladies' day and we decided to go up to Jordan Pond and have the famous popovers. And if you look up Acadia and you look at anything that you must see, you're gonna see popovers on that list. And you're thinking, what is a popover? I've never heard of popover. Why is it a big deal? I'm gonna tell you, it's a really, really big deal. It is this
I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like this roll that is exploded on the top. And so it's this big puff of air and this really, really just flaky, wonderful dessert kind of thing. I don't even know how to explain it, but it comes to your table and it is you can have it with ice cream, you can have sundaes with it, you can have it just plain with butter and a honey butter on your table. It is amazing. They are so famous and for a reason. And so I would give you a couple of tips. Number one, you're going to wait in line.
Yep.
You are going to wait in line because everybody wants the famous Jordan Pond Popovers, and so they don't take reservations. So for us, what we had to do was we went there and you put your name in, you get a beeper, and then you have to stay within range of that beeper, meaning you can only go right around. You can look down at the pond, but you cannot drive. You can't go see anything else in the park during that time. You can't go for a hike. You have to wait right around in that area. Luckily for you, it's beautiful there, and you're going to want to spend some time there. But after a little while, it's going to be hard. And if you've got kids, that's why we didn't do it. The second time we were going to go back to that, and we didn't for this reason. We didn't think that our kids would think the popovers were worth the wait. And for us, being able to wrangle that many kids for the length of time that we waited. And we waited 2.5 hours to be able to sit down and to have the popovers. For adults, it was wonderful because we enjoyed the place around us.
Make sure you go ahead and call for their hours as well. They only are open and serve those a certain few hours in the day. It's not like it's all day.
No, it's not.
And those hours change seasonally, so make sure you check that before you commit to go in. So once you get done there, you can go around and finish out the last little part of the loop, and that top portion there between, if you're thinking about it like from a clock, from like 10 to 12 o'clock is actually two-way road, so make sure you're aware that as you're driving in. But that's where you're going to hit kind of the climax of the whole park. If there's one thing that Acadia is known for, it's Cadillac Mountain. It is the tallest mountain in the range right there, which makes it the tallest mountain on the East Coast, right on the ocean, and by far the best views of the entire park. And so that is definitely a must-see on anybody's list. That's the one thing you got to see if you're at Acadia. But here's our family pro tip. Make sure you get your reservation. Reservation? What? Yep. You don't have to have any kind of reservation to go and drive around the loop. But at the loop, the part where you turn to go up, it's about a 3-mile drive back and forth up to the summit. There's a gatehouse there at the bottom, and you have to have a reservation to be able to do that. It's pretty simple. You just go online to the National Park Service page. It's easy to find. We'll have the link down in the description. You just get there, reserve your time, but you do have to have that reservation to be able to go up there because
and there's a minimal cost to it as well. There's a minimal cost. I think $2 is all it is.
Super small. There's just a very small parking lot, and so they moderate basically the flow of people going up there, which once you get up there you'll be happy with, because when you see the size of the parking lot you'll realize if it was just a free-for-all you might never find a spot.
So you're probably going to want to download that recreation.gov app, because then you can keep it on your phone instead of having to print something out. If you're doing it on the go and trying to find that, it's really easy to have your phone. For us, realize there's not good service in there, so we weren't even able to pull that.
That's our next family pro tip, is once you get that reservation, you'll get a little QR code.
Take a picture of it.
Screenshot that thing. Because we got to the base right there, and it took forever for us to be able to get enough data to download the thing with like 1 bar of signal. So just realize we wish we had done that, and so we want you to do that before you go up there.
For sure.
Once you get through, you'll head up to the top of Cadillac Mountain, and you can get out and walk around. There's lots of trails, paved trails throughout there, so you can see
accessible.
Lots of different areas from there. See down at Bar Harbor. If you're looking for the true peak, it's actually behind the visitor center, and so you can ask a ranger exactly where that is. Most of the trails are out kind of down the slope a little bit, but still it does not hamper the view at all. And realize one thing that's unique about Cadillac Mountain is from like October to March is the first place you can see the sunrise on the East Coast. The other months it's like another different mountain in Maine that gets it like a minute early or something, but during that time it's the first place you can see the sun. But you got to get your reservation early because it's super popular, and you got to get out of bed early because realize that at its earliest point, which is in like June or something, the sunrise is at 4:30, and you need to be there at least 30 minutes before sunrise is what they said. And so
the park takes a while to get there. Remember,
Yeah.
you got that one road, and sometimes you can get in that other side, just depending on where you are. We were about 40 minutes from Acadia, so it took us a while to get there from our campground. So you got to get up really, really early. But I've heard it is a must see from the people who've done it.
We don't
they
do
have loved
early,
it.
but if you do early, check it out, because you can tell from these pictures, the view, no matter what time you're there, is amazing.
And make sure that you go on that recreation.gov. That's where you're going to get that reservation. Again, you have to have that. Again, make sure that you don't show up so early and not have your tickets.
So once you're done with Cadillac Mountain, you can finish out the loop and pull out of the park. And then we're going to give you one must-see that's outside of the park, but right by the central area, and that is Bar Harbor, Maine.
Or Bahaba.
Yeah, if you're
darling.
If you're from Maine, they don't have any R's, and so it's Bahaba. But it is the cutest little town. In fact, there's like 3 little towns right there around Mount Desert Island that are all super, super neat. But Bar Harbor is the biggest and it's the cutest. I mean, come on.
And it's well known.
It's right there on the harbor, and so there's water all around. You can see there's islands dotted out just off of the coast. It is a beautiful little area with tons of restaurants, tons of shops.
A beautiful park in the center too.
There's a beautiful park in the middle. Realize that there's more people than there are parking here as well.
Oh, for sure.
So plan on doing that same thing we talked about in the park and just slowly making your route until you see something, getting it, and then committing to that parking spot to walk around. Luckily, the town itself is not that big. But once you're there, you'll want to do all the shopping, do your restaurant. But our next family pro tip for sure is to make sure that you don't miss the shore path walk. Starting right there from that park that Francis was talking about, there's a path called the shore path that walks right along the edge, and we would suggest that you go at low tide. You get a little bit of low tide smell, a little bit of fishy smell.
That's true.
But because the water recedes back, you get to see a bunch of the rocks. There's a big rock that's leaning over you can only get to when the tide's out a little bit, and our kids just love running around.
It's like Balance Rock, I think is the name of it.
And so you definitely definitely want to make sure that you take the time to walk out that path and walk back as well. Even though it's right there in the town, you feel like you could be a million miles from anywhere.
True.
So great. And then finally, there are also lots of great tourist things to do right there in the town, renting e-bikes. But one of the highlights for sure is they have some cruises that leave out from right there. You can go watch whales, or you can go see the little puffins and all the great lighthouses.
Yes, so the friends we've been speaking about, one of my friends really wanted to see the puffins. She did all the research on this, and she really found that this was going to be an incredible cruise, that we were going to get to see puffins and lighthouses, and what we weren't prepared for was the amount of eagles. So during the time we were there in June is the nesting season, and so we were able to see the eaglets, which are kind of the adolescents. We were able to see the babies, so all the moms and dad eagles, they are really close by, so they're in the trees, they are very visible. It is absolutely breathtaking. But this cruise is wonderful. It comes right from Bar Harbor, and then you're able to take off. This cruise lasted about 3 hours. We went early in the morning, which is a great time to go because then you can have the rest of your day to finish up. And so we headed there early. Be sure, a tip is to get there even earlier than your boarding, at least an hour before, because we were able to get on the boat earlier than we expected and to find a seat. It is very popular, and the boat has 3 different kind of tiers of seating. And so there is the top tier, which I highly recommend that you be at the top. So just quickly make your way up to the top of it, because then you get a 360 unhindered view because you are above on the very top of the boat. But then there are some indoors, so if it's cold and rainy and overcast, there is some covered that's inside. You get to hear all that the guide is going to tell you. You get to step outside, but it is also covered. So if you have babies, or if the weather is not what you want it to be, there is that. And then there's kind of the back of the boat, which you're able to see just kind of hindered views. So you're going to want to get there early so that you can get up top, because everybody wants those seats. But I would say that is one of my pro tips, is to make sure that we didn't get there as early. We got there early and thought we were going to walk around Bar Harbor, and then we saw everybody getting on the boat. So that's something that we didn't know, that I would pass on to you, that we didn't hear about. The next thing I'm going to tell you is that it is beautiful. You're not just going to see the puffins, though the puffins are super cute. Your guide is going to give you an incredible journey. They're usually naturalists of the area. They've usually either lived here, or they've been serving with either the National Park Service, or they've been in this kind of area for most of their lives, and they are incredibly knowledgeable. That was more than really anything, was learning the history of the park, learning all that this area has to offer. You leave there with a really good understanding of Acadia National Park and the areas around it, and the animals, the wildlife, the water life, the conservation efforts. This cruise made me so much more educated about what I was seeing when we were in Acadia National Park.
So that is only part of all the amazing things that you'll be able to see at Acadia. So make sure that you catch our next video. You can link to it right up there. That tells you everything that you can do in Acadia that's outside of that main loop, and there is a ton to do as well there. So make sure that you check out that video so that you can see that. We'd also love for you to follow along with our channel. We weekly share with you our RV travel vlog as we go all around the country seeing all the non-national park sites, and then you can also click right over there to see our playlist of all of our family tour guides for all of the national parks that we have done so far. There's so much for your family to do at each and every one of these parks, and we want to help you maximize that time there. So until next time, we hope you go out and have some crazy fun with your crazy family. See you guys.
Bye guys.